Okay, good morning everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I declare open the committee's first biannual public hearing with the National Capital Authority in the 48th Parliament. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Ngunnawal people, and pay my respects to their ancestors and their elders past, present and future, and extend this respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in their cultural and spiritual connections to Australia's lands and waters. On behalf of the committee, I welcome any First Nations people who may be here today or joining us online. In accordance with the committee's resolution, on 19th of August 2025, this hearing will be broadcast on the Parliament's website and the proof and official transcripts of proceedings will be published on the Parliament's website. I remind members of the media who may be present or listening online of the need to fairly and accurately report the proceedings of the committee. To assist with the transcription of the public hearing, it would be appreciated if everyone could please state their name before responding to each question. And I would like to introduce the committee members present with us today. We have Deputy Chair Senator Andrew McLaughlin, Senator David Pocock, Sharon Claydon MP, Deputy Speaker of the House, and online joining us we have Cameron Caldwell MP, Henry Pike MP, Renee Coffey MP, and that's it for now. Yeah. So, I would now like to welcome representatives of the National Capital Authority to give evidence. Thank you so much for joining us today. And for the Hansard record, could you please begin by stating your full name and capacity in which you attend today?
Thank you, Chair. I'm Karen Doran, Chief Executive of the NCA.
Thank you.
Henry Hedari, I'm the Chief Operating Officer of NCA.
Bianca Bautista, Chief Counsel.
Andrew Smith, Chief Planner at National Capital Authority.
David Wright, Director Major Projects at NCA.
Thank you all again for being here. Although the committee does not require you to give evidence under oath, I should advise that this hearing is a legal proceeding of the Parliament and therefore has the same standing of proceedings of the respective houses. The giving of false or misleading evidence is a serious matter and may be regarded as a contempt of Parliament. The evidence given today will be recorded by Hansard and attracts parliamentary privilege. I now invite you to make a brief opening statement before we proceed to discussion.
Thank you. We'll make an opening statement. So the NCA is a small but dedicated agency working effectively to achieve as much as we can for the community in Canberra through well-planned and integrated programs of work and by working collaboratively with other agencies and organisations. The last 10 months has been a very busy period for the NCA. Much has unfolded since our last meeting with the Joint Standing Committee in December 2024. The NCA has a regulatory role. Development and construction work is significant at the moment in Canberra, and the NCA planning team has a regulatory role in many of these projects in the city and the National Triangle areas. It's a common misconception that the NCA is responsible for delivering some of these more significant projects, most notably light rail. Instead, our actual role is a statutory one, assessing the project's works approval applications, or DAs as they're called in other jurisdictions, for consistency with the National Capital Plan and to preserve the special characteristics of Canberra as the nation's capital. Some of the current significant projects which the NCA is involved in this capacity include the University of New South Wales, the National Security Precinct, NURA, Canberra Theatre, Canberra Aquatic Centre, Acton Foreshore, as well as private developer projects. But the NCA does have direct responsibility for the delivery of infrastructure projects as part of our role to maintain and enhance the national estate. At the moment, we have two very significant infrastructure projects, which are both moving into the construction phase in 2025. These are the Commonwealth Avenue Bridge Renewal Project and the Scrivener Dam Strengthening Project. Both of these assets are 60 years old, and this is the first substantial works on either asset since their original construction. Both projects are primarily about addressing risk and improving safety of these important assets. Other works that the NCA is currently undertaking within the context of its regular funding envelope include improving lighting around the lake, Commonwealth Park remediation works, and the Parks Place Precinct project. The NCA is undertaking immediate work to improve lighting around the central basin area of the lake and to respond to community concerns about safety. But this work is part of our normal ongoing maintenance program. We're also looking to undertake a longer-term review of lighting needs and accessibility needs across the precinct. This is work that we will undertake in consultation with the community. In early 25, the NCA released the Commonwealth Park concept vision for public consultation. We look forward to sharing the feedback on this later in the year. The concept vision was intended as a long-term planning tool, identifying a range of potential initiatives for this precinct over that longer term. But again, it allows our regular maintenance programs to progress in the context of that overall vision. And in this way, we've undertaken recent works to refresh the Narang Pools area and more recently to remediate some of the plantings along the Parks Way border. The Parks Place project is a significant integrated project that looks at rejuvenating this precinct. It commenced as essential upgrade works for stormwater infrastructure in this precinct as part of our ongoing maintenance works, but the project now includes refreshing of the National Rose Gardens and works on the Federation Centenary fountains. This work is both efficient in terms of completing work in a precinct in an effective and planned way. It's also opportune in the context of the upcoming 100-year anniversary of Old Parliament House. The NCA, as well as planning and maintaining the estate, has a continued role to play in promoting activation and supporting events in the National Triangle to help foster a sense of community. These activities and events have both been via commercial arrangements, such as the Little Burley markets and the return of the popular Christmas in July festival, through partnerships such as with ACT Government for Floriade and Enlighten, as well as NCA-led events, including the return of the Australia Day drone show and concerts at the Carillon. So looking forward, the NCA remains committed to community engagement, to hearing from our community their views, ideas and concerns. The most recent of our community forums was held in August, with this meeting being held both in person as well as streamed for remote access. The NCA also expects to see continued collaboration with the ACT Government as we work together in planning for the continued growth and evolution of Canberra. I appreciate the role of this joint standing committee and interest in the agenda of the NCA. Together with my colleagues today, I welcome the opportunity to share more detail on our work priorities and projects and to respond to your questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dora. I really appreciate that update. And so the way we might work through today, just for other members, is we will go through in order of the topics there, and if people can please just let me know if they have questions on each. We'll go through in order of the topics there, and then there are a couple of other things that I'd like to ask about at the end, and others may have other topics as well. Just let me know, please. I might just actually, before we go on to light rail, just because obviously we've got some members of the public here, I just wanted to ask quickly about the Amberfield project and around proposals for building an intersection at the site of that new development, which is a large retirement village. I understand you're aware of it, which has now created a lot more traffic turning off the Cotter Road in and out of that development. Just keen to, because it is on an NCA, the land is under the NCA remit, I just had a couple of questions around that. Well, first of all, if you have an awareness of that and what, might be the NCA's view on the proposal for the intersection. But also, we'll maybe just start with that, if that's okay.
Thank you. Yes, we are very aware of the development, but also the issues that are being raised at the moment. As you've noted, the development is on NCA land, and it came under our planning approval responsibilities. The surrounding areas, though, are ACT lands, unleased lands and adjustment areas. We've, at the time of the development approval, traffic management issues were looked at, and at the time was considered that there weren't going to be excessive pressures. But of course, time progresses and things can change. We are very open to working with the community and the residents there around the issues they are expressing. We're working with ACT government on these issues as the actual road and traffic management aspects are more directly their responsibility. We're looking at it in a sort of forward-looking context as well, with what might be future plans for those more direct areas, but also the broader avenue down that sort of Southern Gateway part of the precinct. In fact, we're going out in a couple of weeks on a joint visit together with some ACT government officials to sort of walk through and understand the issues. So I can say, in summary, I suppose we are very aware and we are looking to work through those issues and see what solutions may be, not only immediately, but to serve the long term of what that precinct may need.
Thank you very much. And a specific issue that's been raised with me around that is whether or not the NCA could be involved in an application for funding for a black spot funding in that area. And I appreciate that. I think it would be a preempt, like normally that program is around existing black spots, but that this could be a potential, like there's clearly a potential there. So is that something the NCA could be involved in?
That is actually difficult for the NCA. The Black Spot program is run through the Department of Infrastructure, which is our portfolio department. The NCA, as a Commonwealth government agency, can't apply for grants. We can support, I suppose, and to that extent we'd be open to considering a support for this proposal, but it is very much, as I said, a process of the department.
Okay. Thank you very much. We might move on to light rail then. So just to start, obviously the consultation on the environmental impact statement closed just recently on the 5th of September, and it's, at this point the feedback from that, I appreciate, would be being incorporated into the next iteration of plans. But from the NCA perspective, could you give any update on that project, and particularly with regard to the NCA and Commonwealth consideration of the proposed route?
So yes, the EIS process has the draft EIS has just been out for public consultation. That's an approval process that runs through DQ and considers environmental and heritage issues predominantly for the project. It's a precursor stage to later approval processes, one of which is through the Parliament, and the final one which is through the NCA for the works approval when that documentation comes in. And that we're not expecting until sort of the second half of 2026 at this stage. The EIS process, I suppose we have a sort of watching brief on that. It will be considered, as I said, by DQ. The feedback will go to the ACT government for them to respond to in their next stage of development of the EIS and the design concept for the light rail. But we, as we have throughout this project, we have a sort of a close working relationship with ACT government in a sort of advisory and keeping informed capacity, so that we are watching how the project's developing through its various stages.
Thank you. One particular issue, noting that, where this is at the moment, one particular issue that has been drawn to my attention from the draft EIS was the proposal to build an electrical substation in Yarralumla, and local residents have raised various concerns about that, including impact on local gang population and the placement in the middle of residential area. Is there any comment you could make on that at this point, or any concern you have about that?
Again, it's an issue that will be considered through the DQ and the EIS process. I suppose that the reality of this type of project is that there will need to be electrical substations at various locations to service the light rail, but in locating those, I think the balance of the best environmental outcomes will also be considered.
Thank you. Did anyone, Deputy Chair, did you have any light rail questions?
I just have one interest. And excuse me, I'm a Canberra resident, and just reflecting on heritage and how it's going to fit in with the heritage feel, has a view been taken on what the look will be like and the sort of style of the design in relation to heritage, or is it too early days?
There's certainly been a lot of discussions and a lot of considerations. I might ask Andrew Smith to talk
absolutely. We'll talk about the primary heritage aspects, and because there's multiple layers to the project here. But there's been a lot of focus on ensuring that the landscape qualities of the national capital, particularly in the national areas, the National Triangle, are preserved or in fact enhanced through the light rail project. There are some very practical things you have to manage when you're looking at a rail system and how it is to operate one. But certainly there's been a heavy emphasis on preserving and protecting the landscape qualities of the city and the heritage values of those central parts of the city.
Is there any risks for tree removal in these substations?
So there certainly will be trees removed. In terms of the heritage trees, the most notable ones will be, regardless of the route that the shade tree ultimately elects to adopt, some trees that were planted in the 1920s will be removed. That's both on Commonwealth Avenue, and if they elect to go through the parliamentary zone, well then there'll be some heritage trees removed there. Having said that, a number of the species that would be removed are actually already beginning to die. So there's a replanting strategy, which adopts same species and same planting mix that was originally preserved, originally set up for the city. And in some ways that's not dissimilar to our own work, where we'll have a tree that was planted 100 years ago, it's dead or dying, and we'll replace it with the same species. So the principles of landscape replacement and heritage are being adopted through the light rail stage 2B development proposal.
Is it 1 for 1, or are we doing 5 to 1? There's various ways of implementing that. And
there are different ways of doing that. At a very detailed level, there are the principles on Commonwealth Avenue will on the verges will be identical to what's being planted at the moment. In the median, there will be a reduction because the territory's proposing rail tracks, but the trees that will be planted in the median will be large European trees which are consistent with the rest of the planting and the landscape setting of this part of Canberra.
So if the light rail is achieved, will the residents enjoy more trees or less? In some locations, there'll be more trees. In some locations there'll be less trees. But I have not done a 1-for-1 count of every tree. I'd be interested if you go on this journey in the community.
Certainly there, I think more broadly, in the urban environment these days, and very contemporary, the value of trees in creation of ecosystems and in cooling cities is unquestioned. And there is a very strong desire on part of the territory through this program to plant more trees, and certainly we are looking at the landscape structure quite closely in a way to ensure that sort of the great ceremonial avenues of this city are preserved and protected and in fact enhanced as part of this project.
Thank you.
And if I could add, Senator McLaughlin, not specifically going to trees but more to heritage values. I think in our ability to work collaboratively with ACT government through the design phases of this project, we have been able to influence things like green track on certain areas of the light rail in the National Triangle parliamentary zones, and also wire-free tram in those areas as well, and all of that goes to preserving, to the extent we can, the heritage aspects.
Yes, my questions were from a heritage perspective, but also a city cooling perspective. So it's at the I can have confidence at the forefront of thinking of this project rather than an afterthought.
Ms. Claydon.
Thank you. Thanks, Ms. Doran. I was just wondering, I'm not sure who to direct the question to, but there were my understanding is a couple of options you're considering for the stage 2B section coming through the Parliamentary Triangle area.
The ACT government, yes,
okay.
is
right.
considering.
Do you have to comment or have any role to play in about, the... do you have an opinion about a preferred route, or is that not your area?
At this stage, we're supporting the design aspects of both routes, and both routes have, challenges and relative pros and cons. So we're just working through all of those issues in an equal way, I suppose you would say, at this stage. The ACT government will make a choice on route, most likely informed through the outcomes of the EIS process. So it is our expectation when it comes to our approval process, which is the works approval phase, it will be a decided route at that point.
Okay. And when it comes, is there... are the views of Parliament, or does that have to come to the Australian Parliament at all? If it is, and what is being triggered in that process? What are we looking at in that process? Is this one of these designs that has to come before the Parliament? Yeah.
It does, as a major infrastructure project in the parliamentary zone. The requirement is that it's tabled before the Parliament.
Yep.
I think the Parliament's considerations at that point are for the Parliament,
sure.
but it would go to a balance of the impact on the parliamentary zone, the impact on the national capital, and then probably a consideration of the community feedback as has come through consultation processes.
And I mean, do security matters do they form part of the concerns in the work that either you do or the ACT government does, or is it all left to when it arrives at Parliament we worry about that?
They will be issues that I expect will be considered through these current consultation processes, probably led by Commonwealth agencies who are more directly concerned with those issues.
Okay, thanks. That's all for me. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Senator Pocock.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you again for your time here. Could you just outline for the committee the process and timeline from here for final approval of 2B from Commonwealth Park to Woden? Just so we're clear what we're looking at.
So, of course, any timelines are subject to the processes as they play out, but the broad timeframes at the moment, as the ACT government are presenting them, and as you know, as we would support in principle, see the finalisation of an EIS probably in the first half of 2026. A decision on route probably coming out of that process, so a route decision, say mid-2026. The project will then sort of have two parallel processes, I guess, which will impact on the approval path. So the pure approval path would be next triggered by a submission of a works approval application to the NCA, which would, for us, start the process for presenting that to the Parliament for parliamentary approval first, and then would come back to the NCA to work through the works approval process. That whole process, from woe to go, might be 6 to 12 months, just depending on Parliament and sitting times, etc. But the period between the decision en route and the submission of a works approval requires other processes for ACT government to work through in terms of their own cabinet approvals, budgetary approvals, etc., before they sort of get to the point of submitting a works approval. So it is a long process. It's largely a sequential process. By the time it comes to the NCA, that works approval process itself is not overly long, and our working with the ACT government through the early design processes has been with the intention of facilitating it being as streamlined as possible when it does get to that formal stage.
Great. And so just following along there, we're looking at sort of mid to late 2027, some sort of potential final, yeah? Okay, thank you. Have you made a submission to the EIS consultation?
We elected not to do that, no.
Why did you make that decision?
I suppose because it's not necessarily our role in the process, and we do have a statutory role in the process as a regulator, but also because we feel confident that we have other avenues of feeding into the process and expressing our views with ACT government.
Given the complexity of the Commonwealth Bridge to Woden project, has the AC government raised the possibility of breaking that into two stages, essentially getting to Parliamentary Triangle and then looking to get to Woden second?
No, we've not had a conversation, but I might just touch on the relationship between the Commonwealth Avenue Bridge Strengthening Project and the Light Rail Bridge Strengthening Projects. The short version of that is that where it's our expectation that Commonwealth Avenue Bridge strengthening will be concluded before the commencement of construction of any new rail bridge. So they're physically, operationally, construction terms, distinct projects. We are working with the Territory on the nature of the design characteristics, both the bridges and how they sit together visually. There's a bit of a way to go on that, but certainly there's an awareness at the NCA that the Commonwealth Avenue Bridge is an iconic quality, and that shouldn't be undermined or compromised by the rail bridge, and the Territory shares those sensibilities.
Thank you. And can I just pick up on the questions from the Chair about LDK and Amberfield Village? My understanding is when this is fully complete, there'll be about 1,000 residents. It's estimated about 2,000 transits per day, so 2,000 turns onto Cotter Road, an 80km/h road. What's the actual process from here to getting a safer way to turn onto Cotter Road? What is that? I understand it's complex with the ACT government. Is this just purely up to the ACT government now to do that? I was just interested. This didn't factor more into the traffic management plan, which would have been your approval, as part of your approval. No.
Yeah. Well, I will. I'll leave Annie to talk to the traffic management plan at the time of approval, but. I said, I think, we also acknowledge that time has moved on, and, we respond to what's actually happening in practice as much as the modelling that was done originally. Look, I can't commit to, an outcome or what the solution might be, but I can commit today that there are, engaged discussions happening between us and ACT government, and I think there's goodwill of all parties to try and find a solution to this in as quick as time frame as we can.
Ultimately, it's a decision for the Territory, though.
Yes, traffic lights is a decision for the Territory.
And how different was the modelling to what's happening now? Like, why was that wrong?
So there are two components to the problem in general. It's the loads that come from the Amberfield development, which I take it as 2,000 movements a day. The other aspect is actually the traffic loads coming along Cotter Road. And that's where the material changes occurred since the modelling was done.
And so Molonglo didn't factor into that modelling?
Well, it did, but of course, since then, the population projections for Molonglo Rally have increased by about 20... careful with my numbers here, but quite significantly. I think it was in my memory, it's only my memory, it's about 55,000 person population. Just at Molonglo now we're looking in now in the 75s, 80s.
Yeah.
So what's happening is the movement, getting out of that development is becoming increasingly difficult because of the loads that are coming from the Molonglo Valley, and they're things that weren't picked. In fact, it's only recently. Weren't picked at the time, and it's only recently the National Capital Authority has amended the National Capital Plan to identify that population growth, and we've legislated that the Molonglo Town Centre is a town centre, and that's the material change that has occurred over the last 10, 15 years since the Amberfield development started to emerge as an idea.
And I know you limited in your resources, so just to be clear, that people should direct their concerns to the ACT government about the traffic light situation if they want it resolved. Is what I'm hearing, yes.
Yes, I mean, we are always happy to also, take the issues and understand the concerns, and we meet regularly with ACT government on a range of issues, so we can support those discussions as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We might actually, if it's all right with other members, that might be a nice segue into the Commonwealth Avenue Bridge renewal topic. So obviously recently they've announced that the bridge is going to be down to one side of the bridge for basically 2 years, beginning late this year. Appreciate obviously why that needs to happen, but I'm just keen to ask around how the NCA is what measures are being taken to minimise the disruption for commuters, businesses and residents during this extended construction period, particularly noting we've got a lot of construction that's been going on in that area for some time. So, yeah.
Again, we acknowledge that this project will come with disruption for the community, and we are looking to both have as much communication and forward notice as we can to help community manage the circumstances. But we're also working very actively with ACT government and through our consultants, our contractors on this project to look at traffic management solutions that can minimise the disruption as much as possible. So as you've noted, Chair, the reality of the process will be that one span of the bridge will be closed at any time, and planning at this stage is that will be 12 months for each span, so a 2-year period. The works are quite extensive and quite complex, and so there is no way that a span can remain operational to traffic while the works are occurring on that span of the bridge. That means that we will have traffic so each span of the bridge has 3 lanes. That means there will be at least 1 lane of traffic in each direction. What we are exploring is the options for optimal use of the 3rd lane that's on the bridge and how that can best serve the traffic needs, the various peak hour traffic needs, and also the needs of public transport, which is a particular consideration as well for those who rely on the bus services. This bridge is a critical north-south traffic lane for the city, and unfortunately, we just have to work within that reality. But we are also coordinating across the other projects and works that are underway. Again, working with ACT government, their light rail project teams, and trying to ensure that there is as streamlined a solution as possible, and that we're not, impacting one or the other with what we're doing on our individual projects.
Yeah. Are you able to expand on that at all? Because I was going to ask, noting, of course, that the light rail is subject to the processes we've previously discussed, that it's not up to the stage of the route even being, finalised yet, or the proposed route, and that the proposal will be for what is essentially a separate bridge down the middle of Commonwealth Avenue Bridge. But given this amount of disruption, how are you working with the ACT government to ensure that what could be done all at once, or how to make that as seamless as possible so that we don't finish this Commonwealth Avenue Bridge strengthening project only to start another major disruption on that bridge? How is that going to be minimised?
Yeah, and I apologise, I should have been clearer in that it was the light rail 2A works that we're currently coordinating with. So it was always the long-term plan that, as Andrew said earlier, the bridge strengthening works would be completed prior to the commencement of any works on light rail 2B. So we have, in the planning, we've tried to separate those 2 projects and get the timing right so that they're not happening at the same time. There are, in fact, some practical realities with that, in that the strengthening work on the bridge needed to occur before the proposed 3rd bridge span was to be built for a light rail 2B phase. So there is no direct sort of impact between 2B and our current works, but there are significant works happening in the city with light rail 2A and other developments and infrastructure projects underway, which is causing different traffic situations on that northern end of Northbourne Avenue, and so that's where we're working closely together to make sure that those traffic arrangements are streamlined and work efficiently together.
And so again, I'm not an engineer, obviously, or so, but just so people understand, so there are genuine reasons why you couldn't be doing that third bridge at the same time as the strengthening works that would minimise the disruption.
I don't need my question.
Oh, sorry.
Fine. Go ahead.
I stole Sharon's question.
Oh,
sorry.
I'm not an engineer either, Chair, so I'll make a layman's effort and then I can pass to my project director. But in simple terms, the current works to strengthen the bridge require physical lifting of the bridge surface spans in order to reinforce the internal fittings, I suppose, within the bridge and the cabling within the bridge. That requires barges to be underneath those spans working from the water to support it, which means that it is very difficult to do other works at the same time, which would be trying to construct something in between those two spans.
Okay. Did you have any questions on this?
You've asked the ones about the bridge, but I had some about the lake. I don't know if that's related enough.
The lake, like water quality?
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to ask about that too. So,
I'm just also interested. I was interested in that interface between the construction of another bridge for 2B light rail down the centre of two existing bridges, a new one. And again, not a structural or civil engineer, so this may make sense to others, but it does seem, notwithstanding the challenges with traffic that you've articulated, notwithstanding the problems that you are somehow lifting the surface of a bridge in order to strengthen it underneath, that you would then reopen a whole construction of another bridge at a different time and do it all again. That's the only way it works. Is this correct?
Yes, I might jump in. So there are a couple of... I'm an architect and an urban planner, not a structural engineer, but I have looked at the construction of this.
Yeah.
And so there is a need to lift both spans of Commonwealth Avenue Bridge to the bearing replacement, and that's but the way the third bridge is intended to be constructed is sort of a shunting system where you just weave your way between the two, but that too will need some support underneath. There's also a need for us to be able to reach over the inside lane to do some of the strengthening, and we're replacing road barriers, so we actually need to get to the inside, but the gap between the two bridges to do our work. And in terms of sequencing, because we have to close a bridge, each span of Commonwealth Avenue Bridge, if that work's not done before a rail track is in, we actually have to do the crossover we'd introduce a crossover across a rail track as well. So this is gets into quite a lot of detail about the construction sequencing, but it's very much in the physical requirements to do our strengthening and to do our barrier replacement, and then once our work is done, to make sure the community can move on 3 lanes on both spans of Commonwealth Avenue Bridge. The challenge will be for the Territories builder to keep within the median of the Commonwealth Avenue to operate to do
So
the
you
bridge
think
construction.
when it's time to do the shunting bridge crossing, or whatever we're calling it, those three, like, people will still be able to travel on 3 lanes of traffic while that's being built.
Yes.
You're not going to have that kind of major disruption. Okay.
No, so there'll be
Yep.
sort of slight, I mean, it's like my
I
sliding.
don't know what this looks like. I've got no idea what you're talking about. Sorry, but I'll
So yes, so
investigate
our
afterwards.
design and the sequencing is such that 3 lanes of traffic will be able to move on both lanes of Commonwealth Avenue Bridge whilst there is construction of the rail bridge.
Okay. So where is the disruption going to occur? You surely can't just, like, at the ends, the anchor points or something? Like,
Well, we're getting to, there will
Don't
be
worry.
disruption.
If it's-
if it occurs, it
Yep.
will just be to move materials across a road,
Okay.
and so that'll be a temporary disruption. So that'll be the way it occurs and when it occurs. Yeah.
and this bridge will take, this strengthening, widening project is a 12-month, if all goes well.
So our project, yes, 12 months on each span, so 2 years in total. So we'll be completed by the end of 27, early 28.
Okay.
And I think that's another important issue, is that the timing on the 2B project, while there's still a long way to go for that to be finalised, but there will probably be at least a year gap before they're up to starting their works.
Thank you.
And Chair, it's probably also worth highlighting to your point about what else are we doing to minimise disruption. One of the other active measures we're taking is to do every other piece of work that we need to do that impacts other routes currently, as in Kings Avenue, Parksway, to get those done so we don't then add to the load and be doing work at the same time as the bridge work. So that's why you see quite a bit of activity there along Parksway at the moment. There'll be some activity on Kings Avenue very soon. So we're trying to complete all that and get out of the way so then we don't disrupt any more work there.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Just checking in with committee members online. If you have any questions on this, just turn on your video and let me know if you do. Okay. We might move on to the Centenary Fountains interim works, if that's... Did anyone have any questions on the National Security Precinct?
I just had one.
Oh, you did? Okay.
It's off track.
Well, we might do that then. And Deputy Chair.
I'm interested, this is more an accountability question, if you could guide me. I noticed that the spend is not released to the public for national security reasons. Leave aside, who's then holding the spend to account? Is it Public Works hasn't looked at it? Are you having a look at the spend on them to see that where Commonwealth money is well applied? So where does it go?
I think the questions regarding that project and the expenditure are best directed to the Department of Finance.
Right. Yeah. I appreciate that. I was just looking
So
for
we did.
a place to go.
Obviously, it's in a we're planning approval role there.
Yes.
But in that sense, what the developer, in this instance, the Department of Finance, chooses to spend is really a matter for them. Yeah, we don't ask those.
Yes.
That's not a question we ask.
But you have oversight of what the output is, the landscaping or whatever.
Oh yes, it's a planning approval. Yes, it's a planning approval, and we have a oversight of that. Yes.
Yeah, and is that approval and the plans secret?
That's not they're not publicly released. No.
Not publicly released either, even though it's landscaping.
I recommend you speak to the Department of Finance about the project.
Anyway, that's all, Chair.
Okay. Thank you.
Secret landscape.
We might move on to the Federation Centenary Fountains interim works, which obviously you mentioned in your opening statement and has been in the public domain this week about the reimagining of them, which I'm sure people are really pleased to hear. Like, I know I'm really pleased to hear that they'll be fixed up. But I think a lot of people would have questions around why it is so complicated and expensive to have returned them to fountains. And if you could just elaborate on why that is.
I'll pass to Hamid to answer that question.
Thank you, Chair. One of the things we have had several attempts at looking at reinstating them, and if I can perhaps one thing I would offer to the committee, it might be very worthwhile at some point that we actually give you a tour of the site, and that would probably be one of the quickest way of demonstrating what the issue is. The shortest answer is what you see on the surface is literally a third of the infrastructure. There are rooms underneath with pump rooms, electrical work, and so that is all out of date, dating back to the 60s in terms of the pumps that need infrastructure, electrical infrastructure that is out of date, and it's not code that need to be safe. We literally have had to decommission those because they are seeping with water. So if you look inside those now, there's about 1 meter water underground. So it's not just about the surface itself. There's a lot of associated infrastructure works that we need to do, and we in fact have had several quotes when we got to the market and have sought quotes to fix them. And the last time we looked at that, in terms of reinstating the fountains, was the tune of $20 million. And that was, I want to say, 3 or 4 years ago. We have since had done some work which has led to the reimagining. And again, that has funding pressures associated to that. But one of the things that we've done is that how can we capitalise or do an interim work which we then can capitalise for delivering the longer-term solution, and that is what we are doing in terms of looking at the outer design of the side fountains, and then what then to do with the middle bit. So really trying to keep this succinct. It is an infrastructure nightmare to deal with.
Okay. Yeah. Ms. Coffey, did you have a question on this? No? Okay.
I do.
Yeah, okay.
So if, as the proposal that I've just read in these papers, you replace 2 with native garden beds, and then there might be some central, pool or something in the middle. I'm not entirely sure what the imagining is, but what happened? Do you still not have a problem with all that underground infrastructure anyway? Like, how is your problem solved? Like, what happens to all that out-of-date pump works, electrical works, if you don't proceed with the fountains? What do you do with all that?
Certainly the problem doesn't go away, it lessens. So to reinstate the fountains to what they are, as if the 3 of the areas were functional fountains, we would have to reinstate all those pumps and the pump houses and all the associated infrastructure. The plan, the longer term plan, is what you highlighted there, is to have the 2 side gardens plus a fountain-like surface there, and the supporting infrastructure would be far less than actually having them running as 3, in effect, what they are pools. Just to put the size of those things in perspective, those 3 combined are the size of a football field. The outer ones are 15 metres wide by 60 metres long. The middle one is 60 metres wide by 60 metres wide. So we're literally talking about a football field, in effect. A little bit narrower. I know, David, so you're looking at me saying, check your facts, but yes, a little bit narrower, maybe like a soccer pitch. But it is that big. But to your point, the problem doesn't go away, it becomes less. And in fact, the design would have to be really not to do anything with those other than just making them safe and have the associated infrastructure built above the ground and elsewhere. That would probably have to be part of the consideration.
Thank you.
What was the original intent of the pools? How did Canberra people use them, or what happened?
So they were designed as, I mean, Andy can talk more to it as me, but they were designed as part of the... No, they were designed as a part of the original design of the central area. And they were designed to have a reflection element to it, and in terms of being part of the access. But unfortunately, and this is they've been out of commission more than they have actually worked. I think from the get-go there were issues with the design and the infrastructure elements of it.
Thank you. I think that's sorry if I could just add in terms of the sort of longer term solution, as well as the extensive capital costs to reinstate them. There's also an ongoing cost in terms of environmental, electricity, water, etc., associated with them, just because of the size and the scale, and that in a sustainability sense wasn't sort of efficient use of public monies either. They were pools of about a foot deep, but evaporated very quickly, so you're constantly needing to refill them. So the long-term vision, as Hamid has talked to, is to retain a water element, because that was part of the original concept and intent, but to make that water element more sustainable, more modern, and what's almost called zero depth sort of water feature, which might have spouts and things for a bit of child play at various times, but is not a pool of water that evaporates away. But we're pleased to be able to take this interim step to at least return some sort of usable and attractive feature to the area, and to do that in time for the anniversary of Old Parliament House in 2027. We really do think when this precinct opens with the refreshed rose gardens, the fountains with 2 garden beds and a usable plaza in the middle, the landscaped grounds around the whole area, it will be quite an attractive precinct.
So when will that begin? When will the work begin?
It's actually happening at the moment, so we've been able to leverage the fact that we were working on site doing the stormwater works, which is quite extensive and dare I say invasive sort of work, in that there's a lot of trenching and digging up, but that has really facilitated us being able to do the rose gardens and the fountain works as an efficient extension of that program.
Thank you. Deputy Chair, you had a question?
I have one question. You did actually answer my environmental question, Mr. Doran, so thank you for that. Just from a heritage perspective, do you just should we be considering just taking the fountains out entirely and starting again? From a philosophical perspective, I understand probably the reasoning. We're putting a water feeder in and we're putting in plants, and that sounds to me eminently sensible. But from a heritage philosophical perspective, you can't make it a fountain. It's not a fountain anymore. Do you start again, or is that being considered?
Yeah, it has been considered. We started a process in 2023 when the decision was made that we really couldn't reinstate the fountains. We went out for concept design work on what might be different options for the fountains, which included heritage impact assessment works. And most of those concepts came back with variations of, garden, water feature, etc. I think the strong element in the heritage space is the parliamentary vista and the keeping of the water element of the feature, and that reflection sort of element of the feature, and that's why we're keen to keep that water element in the long term.
Yeah, I might just...
Don't come from a place of challenge.
No. As a supplement to that, we did look at the heritage of the fountains And the fabric itself was not considered to be of heritage value. It was this idea of reflection. Yeah, so we're we're on the path to maintain that. But we did brief the Q about what was, and they thought this was a good first interim step.
Sometimes, had its day.
Look, I think their phrase was anything would be better than what was there now.
I'll have to go for a look.
We'll just sort of work through this as well.
Okay.
Any questions from members online? Okay. We might move on then to, I think, Senator Pocock, you've got a question on Commonwealth Park. Yep.
I'm interested in the work you're undertaking around the concept vision for Commonwealth Park. And I'm interested how many submissions you've had as part of your consultation so far.
Sorry, I'll just find the briefing. Thank you, Senator. So the Commonwealth Park concept vision went out for consultation for 10 weeks between April and June of this year. We received 109 written submissions in response. We had a survey as part of the process as well, and 384 people completed that survey. We ran a number of public information sessions and pop-up sessions in the park, and we had 174 people attend those sessions over the 10-week period. So we felt it was it was an intentionally long engagement period of 10 weeks, and we were quite happy with the level of response and engagement we did have through that period. And it covered a range of issues. Obviously, the proposed pool in the park attracted a measure of comment from stakeholders in that area. But there's also a range of comments around parking access and circulation, around Stage 88, around public amenities in the park, and sort of making it more open to activation for the community.
Thank you. And when will that be released?
We're hoping to release what will be a listening report towards the end of this year or early in the new year.
Okay.
It was, it wasn't a consultation to the extent that, will be that there's a product that will change as such, but we certainly wanted to capture community's views and ideas, and that's what the listening report will reflect, what we heard from the community.
And thank you. Why wasn't the Archbishop's residence part of this?
It's not part of our land responsibility.
It will carve out from the NCA. And so you have no say about what happens on that piece of land?
No.
They could put anything on there?
Well, we would have a planning responsibility.
It's owned.
But it's owned by the...
I understand that, but if you've got a planning approval...
So we have a plan. So if they were to demolish something and put something else there, they would have to come to the National Capital Authority for approval.
You spoke to the Archdiocese about it?
We did. I met with them as a courtesy through the engagement process because there were some people raising comments and genuine interest of what is the situation with the Archbishop's residence. So I did reach out to them and just to assure them that we recognised that it was carved out and we weren't sort of expressing any views on that, but to let them know of the process that was underway.
There's been media reporting that they're open to potentially selling it. What is the plan based on your discussions? Is it going to be a residence long term or?
Well, what they expressed to me in that discussion was that they had no current plans for it other than as a continued residence. I think over time, over years, 10, 20 years, there have been various points where the option of sale has been discussed.
Can I ask about the sort of Commonwealth Lake area? there was quite a bit of advocacy from community groups and a few members of the Legislative Assembly around safety and lighting, and the NCA undertook to do a review of that. At the time, Ms Kim Elms from Every Street Matters had walked around the lake and counted 43 light globes that needed replacing along just a 2 kilometre stretch. And she said at the time, you just give me a Bunno's voucher and I'll go and replace them. Can we get an update? Where's the review up to, and have those light bulbs been replaced?
Yes, thank you. I'll start, and I'm sure Hamid will add to my response on this. The lighting, safety, accessibility around the lake is something that's sort of high on our work program, and is also a regular part of our maintenance work programs. So certainly when we heard the comment that there were so many light bulbs out at a particular time, it was something we took very seriously and responded to very quickly. We can assure the committee and the community that we do weekly checks of those lights, and as at the last check, all light bulbs were working. We can't guarantee that at times some will go out. The particular light fittings that are in place are unfortunately not the type that you can replace with a Bunnings globe, but we do. We've ensured now
Someone
that we
will sell them. Someone surely sells them.
Yes, they are. They're a bespoke product, but we ensure that we maintain the stock that we need to keep the replacement program continual. The review work that we're I will say, in again response to the community concerns, we have started some short-term programs of work to look at interim solutions to improve the lighting around the Central Lake area in particular, because it has become such a popular recreational and exercise loop. And we acknowledge that some of the original lighting designs, which are at ground level and were intentional at the time to give that ambient feel to the whole area, probably don't serve the current uses of the lake. So we are looking at some, as I said, short-term interim instalments of various solar light fittings in garden beds, etc., to try and enhance the lighting in particular areas, and Hamid will be able to add more to that. But we always had on our program, and we have now sort of accelerated the review work to look at a longer-term lighting solution.
When will that be completed?
Look, we're hoping within 12 months we'll have done the review, the first stage of it, which will now focus on the central basin area of the lake in particular. We do and always had plans to extend that through the National Triangle precinct more broadly, because there are other areas as well where we could certainly improve the lighting and the paths and the connectivity. That review will have a consultation process as part of that, but it will likely indicate that we need fairly substantial works to improve the standard of lighting to Australian standards and safety levels, which will likely involve recabling around the whole area to connect up those lights.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. Can I just clarify, after the complaints from people in the community and the Legislative Assembly, how many light bulbs were actually replaced around the lake?
Just Senator, can I perhaps clarify that the issue that we are facing with the lighting systems around the lake isn't so much the globes themselves. They're actually an element of the design let's call it faulty or poorly designed back whenever they were designed, is that the description, the best way you can describe it is like the Christmas tree. If that one of them goes, it actually takes out everything else with them. So it's not that it's actually a faulty light bulb. So we have to go. The issue that we're doing is repairing the actual connection point and what happens.
But I just heard from Mr. Doran that this is a very high priority on your list that you're constantly. Right. But the community said 43 were out.
Yeah.
And you're saying they're all working, so I'm asking how many were replaced or fixed as part of this?
So all of them. So we sent
was that?
Well, it's about. It's not that there are actually 43 likely.
Well, how many were out and how many were now on?
Well, I didn't count how many were out, but I can assure you that they're all out, they're all functioning at the moment. So we have a regular maintenance program that they do look at. They go around, surveil all the lighting, report them, and the issue is logged. And it's addressed immediately.
And how confident are you with your regular maintenance if it gets to the point where the community is saying there's 43 lights out in a 2 kilometre stretch?
I must say that number was a surprise to me.
Okay.
Because
they're all on.
they're all working.
Exactly.
But I must say that number was a surprise to me because we actually, 3 of our guys, that two nights after that went for a night walk. We actually went and walked the lake at night.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
So,
cheers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I am just keen to give members a chance to ask questions about the items on the agenda, and then there will be time to ask about other items at the end. But we are coming close to time. So, Ms. Clayton, I think you had a question on the neurocultural precinct.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to understand a little bit better the kind of interface between that precinct and IATSIS. Yeah. Can you just talk me? It's separate to, but part of. I couldn't quite understand the relationship between IATSIS. Hopefully I'm on the right project here. Is that the one that IATSIS is partnering with you? Yeah. So you've got two components. You've got the safekeeping place and this other part.
Yes. So NERA is sort of an umbrella term, and IATSIS will be much more detailed than I'll be able to now. But NERA is an umbrella term for basically the creation of an expanded First Nations precinct on Acton Peninsula that's being led by IATSIS. The components of the project broadly, and they're still working through this, are sort of a resting place, a place for First Nations people's remains who are being repatriated from overseas to be held in this country. There's a component of renewal of the IATSIS building itself, which is now, well, it was completed in about 2000, so now 25 years old, so in time for a refresh. And then there's I think it's a National Indigenous Knowledge and Cultural Centre, which is proposed to be a new building sited to between the existing IATSIS building and the National Museum of Australia. The IATSIS building itself has virtually no public program space other than library and research. So this will serve, that building is intended to serve as a sort of exhibition, display, place of exchange and between for First Nations people. IATSIS are still working through that process. We've had some briefings and the design has developed, but there's no sort of step towards sort of construction. They haven't been to the Public Works Committee, so it's a bit of time off.
Okay, thank you. I think so that, I mean, it sounds to me that that would be an extension of sorts to the IATSIS.
It's an extension of sorts. Yeah, it's an extension of sorts to their IATSIS program. What they do as an agency. I'm not. I don't know how the sort of the thing called the keeping place or the resting place it will be managed. It's something you best speak to our IATSIS about, or the National Indigenous NIAA
conversations. Yeah, that's okay. I was just trying to understand the interplay between the existing IATSIS and the proposed, cultural precinct. Thank you.
Thank you. Still in part, Senator Pocock, did you have a question?
Yes, please. Thank you. I was just interested what the current status is around Stirling Park, Gurubang, Dowra. We've talked in the past about the sort of potential residence that's clearly, I don't think, ever going to happen with environmental laws. And just so how are things progressing in terms of better protecting that area, potentially changing the land use classification?
So perhaps the context around management of that land and how it's done. So NCA has a very proactive responsibility in managing the land, and from a conservation perspective and how the land is managed, we work very closely with the Friends of the Grassland in making sure that the place is looked after as if it was listed as such. And in terms of, I think I've talked in the past that we allocate a budget. We have a dedicated contractor service provider to work with us. We work extensively with Friends of the Grassland to draw on their expertise in making sure the area is looked after. And the community would be aware in terms of the significance of that place and what it houses. But to answer your questions about the use of that land and in terms of what it might be earmarked for, that's perhaps a broader government policy question that would need to be. But we certainly are playing our part very actively in making sure the place is looked after and the care is given that it deserves, given the significance.
Thank you. That's good to know. I'll keep raising with the government. One of the things that gets raised with me by conservation groups in the ACT is that despite the best efforts of FOG and land care participants, still areas that are sort of not in good condition. And again, I understand you guys have very limited resources, but really the allocation of funding from memory last time was about $110,000.
That's right.
For an area that size, that's just nowhere near enough.
So Senator, the comfort I can give you is that we work with the Friends of the Glass and what have you. And I think I may have mentioned this last time. For us, just by allocating a budget doesn't mean we want to spend more. We're actually guarded by the conditions and the seasonality. We work with, for example, the RFS to say, look, can we do a burn? So we do a lot of that. But perhaps I just want to clarify, and as much as I dislike saying this is not our responsibility, is this particular reference to Blue Gum Point?
No,
which is really adjacent to that land.
Yeah.
And again,
Stirling Park.
That's right. Yeah, I really want to highlight that. So we look after Stirling Park in the Tunga, which is the bit there, and then there's the Blue Gum Point, which
I understand.
It's
Have you asked the government for additional funding for conservation management?
No, not really, because for us, for doing what we want to do, the funding is not an issue. There's enough resources there.
So you think that Stirling Park and Yarramundi Reach and others are being managed sort of to a high enough level in terms of their ecological value?
Yeah. And in fact, that's not just me saying that. There's anecdotes that you can get from the Friends of the Glassland that confirms that. In fact, in, I want to say 2022, they won an award, and part of the citation for that award was a reference point to the work that was being done in those areas, into the way the land is cared for. Now, naturally, we're always open to suggestions, but ultimately we'll be guarding. So we are, at the core of it, we also, actually have mentioned that we also have worked with the likes of Sarah Sharp in putting in place ecological management plans for these places as well, which are again underpinned by APBC Act, the Biodiversity Act, and the whole regulatory regime.
Funded though, because this is the concern that gets raised with me. Is yes, community groups are doing amazing work; they're actually winning awards for it. But this is NCA land, and the quantum of funding to manage an area with, button wrinklewort and other endangered species, is it not actually enough? You're kind of just leaning on the volunteers to do the work.
Certainly, that's not. I guess what to clarify is that certainly that's not what we do. We actually draw on their expertise to do. We have contracted service providers that do work for us on that behalf. And I just again want to clarify: just because we allocate funding a year doesn't mean we will not spend more. In fact, I am certain. Friends of the Grassland will not mind me saying so, and we give them a grant every year to do towards the activity that they do. And I met with them and said, do you need more? And they said, funding is not the issue.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions online? No? In that case, and we've very limited time now, I might just quickly go to water quality, which I also had some questions on. So obviously there's, a lot of people use the lake, and there's a growing swimmable cities movement about people being able to swim in nature in cities. So I'd just appreciate an update on the work that you're doing to ensure the water quality and how the water quality is, but in particular, is there scope to do winter testing as well as summer testing of the water?
No, thank you, Chair. I will pass in a moment to David, who, as well as being a major projects director, is also an expert on the lake and water quality. But I will just start by saying that we do water quality testing through the summer seasons, and that's been the main period of activity in the lake. As activity is increasing, and we are seeing early signs of that, we would be open to considering water testing through the winter months as well. It might not be as regular as weekly. Our sort of evidence indicates that the winter months aren't the times when we have the bacterial or algae problems in the lake. But we're also conscious that we have other activations coming online as well, with the saunas that are about to be hopefully operational in the next few months, and that as well would sort of be a reason to start considering winter testing of the water in that area, if nowhere else. But in terms of our broader attempts to continue to manage water quality, David?
I might just add to that the schedule of testing is governed by or prescribed by the ACT Health Guidelines for recreational water quality, and so that prescribes testing in summer during the recreation season. However, there is no reason why that can't be extended over winter, and certainly something which we can look at.
But it would be there for them to ask you to do that?
Well, we can take that on as the custodian of the lake.
More than their guidelines.
There's no reason why we can't extend that. And certainly we are seeing increased use of the lake, and I think increased primary contact with swimmers in the middle of winter and so on. So there's probably good reason to consider extending that. In terms of the broader action around water quality in the lake, the water quality is primarily driven by the concentration of nutrients in the lake, and the main source of that is inflows from the catchment. And so the greatest benefit that we can have is improving the catchment health and reducing the inflow of nutrients into the lake. The ACT Government, the Office of Water, is undertaking a catchment review of the catchment management strategy for the lake, and from that, no doubt there will be some improvements that can be made to the water flowing in, and we're providing some additional data and information to support that study at the moment. And so I think that there will be some genuine benefits that can be achieved through that.
Thank you. Senator Pocock.
Just on that point, I understand you're in a tough spot given your resourceful lake water quality, but the inflows is really the issue. Did the ACT Government consult you prior to scrapping the Sullivans Creek renaturalisation project, including the impact that would have on lake water quality?
I can't personally talk to that. I'll perhaps pass that back to either Andy or Karen.
Consult, probably no, but we participate on various catchment groups and committees, so we were certainly informed of the decision.
Have you seen the costings for the $300 million that they're claiming?
No.
No? Okay. The sauna timeline, you said a few months. Is there a launch date, and do you have an idea of how much it's going to cost to sauna? Or is there a cost associated? I assume you have to pay.
Yes. So the actual launch date is for the sauna operator, but our best and latest information from them is mid to late October. The construction is sort of well underway. Most of it is not as visible at the moment, but the sauna elements will come in already constructed, so they'll drop pretty quickly. There is a website, again from the operator, that's already up and taking bookings, and I believe the costs were $55 an hour for a sort of shared booking, noting that there's 2 saunas there. Each one can take 6 people
So
at a time.
Per 6?
No, per person.
Per person?
Per hour. Mm.
Wow.
And I think some discounts if you book in, multiple numbers, sort of thing.
$50 per person. Okay. And just on lake stuff, what's happening to the seaplanes? I thought they were meant to be here.
Yeah, so we had some success with South Coast seaplanes towards the end of the last summer season, with them doing a few tourist type flights. So they fly up from Moruya but then offer a scenic flight around the lake precinct. Our discussions with them is that they are looking at coming back again in this summer season, but as last time, they're very much demand driven, so they have their booking line open and they will respond to demand and also weather conditions.
And then just finally, can I ask about Canberra Ave, given it's a sort of main approach to Canberra, and the pedestrian bridge or underpass for outside St Eddie's? Has the ASD government approached you about that issue?
We've had some discussions with them on it, where we'll have a planning role in that. Ultimately, we're supportive of what they're trying to do, and we'll be as collaborative as we can as their process moves forward.
Do you have a view on underpass versus overpass versus traffic lights? Yeah.
No, we've not formed a view. I mean, at-grade crossings with appropriate signalisation are quite often the most successful way of dealing with movement of pedestrians. Underpasses can have some undesirable behaviour associated with them, and particularly they take a big land area because they have to be accessible, compliant with accessibility codes, and bridges sometimes don't work because people just go from A to B. So, but it's an early conversation.
So the flow-on impacts to the traffic, through the system, I think will be the important consideration as well. So obviously the safety of the pedestrians getting across is the primary.
Yes.
Yeah. But in terms of between options, I think that the impact then on the traffic system.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Sorry, we are out of time, and we might put some questions on notice if that's okay, because we're out of time. But just one I feel I should ask, if we can just go a couple of minutes over, is around the coverage this week about suicide hotspot signage. And I note, of course, this was before you were here, Ms Doran, but why did it take 9 years to act on advice around signage that could have saved lives, and it was just signage?
I'll give a starter answer, and Hamid has some more background on this, but there were stages in this process. So yes, an initial piece of advice was received in 2015. More detailed analysis was undertaken in 2019, which started to inform options for solutions. The ultimate signage went up in 2024 without using it as an excuse, but I will just note we had COVID between 2019 and 2022, which meant that work processes were interrupted somewhat. but I'm not looking to excuse the fact that there was a long time lapse in this whole process. It is a very sensitive issue, and a lot of work was done on making sure that the solution that we ultimately put in place was a balanced one, but also a supported one. And that was the discussions that really occurred from 2019 onwards in exploring those various risk models and the support services behind them, and the best approaches to providing safety around this issue.
Really, the only point to add to that is that's the initial step. So it's not a settled figure on our behalf. We are in continuous discussion with Lifeline and AFP and the subject matter expert to see what else. But that was the first cap of the rank in terms of what we could do.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for your attendance today, and thank you to all the members, including those joining us online. I don't think you've been asked to provide any additional information, but as a flag we might put some questions on notice if we've run out of time. You'll be sent a copy of the transcript of your evidence, and we'll have an opportunity to request any corrections to transcription errors. And thank you to the Secretariat as well, and declare this public hearing closed. Thank you.